I'm Brian Barnett Woods, the local technical assistance coordinator for the southern and western parts of Virginia, and I'll be leading us in this webinar where we're going to discuss Student Travel Tally Week. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to type them in, and then we'll answer them at the end. Also, if your microphone isn't on mute already, please put it onto mute so that we can cut back on a feedback loop. If you're having technical difficulties, please feel free to email Katie at katie@virginiasrts.org. During this presentation, we're going to discuss Student Travel Tally Week, which we held September 16th to the 20th, and we've been collecting tallies all the way up until October 4th. We wanted to take a little bit of time to discuss how to access the data so that we can see what reports look like and then know what to do with the data now that we have it. We'll also take a quick look at how Virginia students travel throughout the state, both to and from school. Finally, we'll talk about next steps for safe routes to school, both locally at your school and what we're planning at the state level. So now that we've spent all this time and energy counting, collecting, and uploading tally data, what do we do with it? Why did we do it? It comes down to three basic points: evaluation, information, and outreach. First, evaluation. Evaluation is one of the 5 E's of Safe Routes to School for good reason. We need to monitor our programs and find out how they're going. See if having a Safe Routes to School program increases the amount of walking and biking to and from school. The Student Travel Tally is a basic indicator of Safe Routes to School. It provides a school-wide census of how students are traveling. Over time, we can see if those transportation modes change, which will suggest whether or not having a Safe Routes to School program encourages biking and walking. In a bit, we'll take a look at a school that has done just that and has taken student tallies over 2 years and see the comparison. The second component of Safe Routes to School is information. Student travel tallies provide schools with the needed information to know and understand student travel patterns. It helps make comparisons, not only from one year to the next, but between schools, divisions, and the state. The data can help lead to project plans and new ideas for the school. For instance, if your student travel tally says that no students are walking, this should be a cue for schools to examine the pedestrian network in the area. Maybe there are no sidewalks, or maybe there's a really busy intersection nearby. If no students are biking in your tallies, this could lead to an assessment of bicycle infrastructure. Perhaps having a bicycle rack at the school will encourage more biking to and from school. Conversely, if lots of students are walking and lots of students are biking, this can be a cue for the school to hold a pedestrian and bicycle safety event, like a walk to school day or a bike rodeo. It could also lead to a request for non-infrastructure funding for a crossing guard. Having the information is the proof that the school needs to back up often anecdotal evidence and assumptions that are made by parents and teachers. Finally, outreach. Use student travel tally data to get the word out about your school. News outlets, like local radio or newspaper, whether it's in print or online, and even local television, often have stories about childhood obesity and sometimes even cover events like Walk to School Day. Share with those news sources the information to help spread the word of Safe Routes to School. They'll want to know the facts on the ground, and Student Travel Tally Week will give them just that. Share this data with your schools as PTA and community groups. Seeing the data clearly presented will help parents recognize the need for safer routes. And reach out to health organizations. Their goals often coincide with Safe Routes to School, and active transportation is a big component of healthy living. Health organizations can and should be resources for safe routes to school. We've already received a lot of email and hotline calls asking about how to find tally data for a particular school's student travel tally data week. So let's take a few moments to look at the process. There are three basic types of reports the National Center puts together. A single tally report, which is one school at one time. And since this is the first time for many schools in Virginia to participate in Student Travel Tally Week, this will be the report they make. An aggregated report, which looks at one time period but counts up all the schools in a region, and that could be the state of Virginia or a school division. And finally, a report for one school over 2 periods. This report is used when a school has already uploaded tally data and wants to find out if there's been a change in how students travel. Regardless of the report type, everyone will need to access the reports through the National Center website. Now, the National Center has 2 websites. The Info website provides lots of great information for Safe Routes to School programs and links to additional resources. The Data website is where you'll be able to find your existing school data as well as add future school data. If you want to learn more about how the National Center collects data and uses their website, feel free to search for webinars, and there's a great one called Travel Tallies and Parent Surveys, Introducing Changes to the Safe Routes to School Data Collection. Before we can access any reports, everyone will need 2 things: a logon and permission to run the reports. You'll have to go to the Safe Routes Data website, and if you're ever having trouble on the website, feel free to call the hotline, and we'll be able to help out in any way we can. Once you're on the website, you'll have to log on. If you've already got a login, that's great. You're already ahead of the game. If not, no worries. Login is really simple. You just fill in your name, your email, and some contact information. Once logged in, you'll search for schools, which is underneath the Schools tab on the blue header of the website page. Usually when I search for a school, I like to only include the city and state and then choose the school from the list. I do this because sometimes a school can be called differently. Is it George Washington Elementary or George Washington Elementary School? If you search by city and state, you can be sure you're going to be getting the right school. Also, we've created accounts already for many schools and have put them under the Virginia Schools School Group. Once you find your school, you'll need to make sure you have access and permission to run reports. To find out if you have access, just look on the school information page. The last topic is access level. If you have access, it will say Run Reports or Edit Data. If you don't have access, it will say Request Access, like it does here. Press the Request Access link, which will send an email to the school contact, and they will be able to grant you access. In many cases, the Virginia Safe Routes to School Administrator is the contact, so don't hesitate about asking for requesting access. We'll be happy to provide it. Once you have access, you'll be able to run the reports. The first report we're looking at is the single tally, which, remember, is just one school at one time. It provides classroom count information, percentages, the difference between morning and afternoon, and weather during the day of the tally. To make this report, log into the website and click My Reports. It's one of the tabs on the blue header. This will open up a new page with the report options. Select the first one, Tally Report for one school at one data collection period. That link will open up the Run Report page. Choose your school and the proper collection date. Most likely, there will only be one choice for school and one choice for collection period. But as your school takes more tallies, there will be more options. Then press Run Report. For this webinar, we'll be looking at an example report. but this report will look just like the ones that your school is able to make. Keep this in mind because it's just an example for the webinar to show kind of baseline information that's provided by the report. At the top of the first page of the report is basic information, and this includes time of collection, the name of the school, school group, division tag, and classrooms included. Notice it doesn't have percentage of students reached by Safe Routes to School activities, nor school enrollment. This information wasn't collected during the initial survey. But don't worry, it won't affect the outcome of the report. In fact, if you or a school representative wants to, they're able to go back onto the website and add this information at any time. I also want to take a moment and mention tags. Tags are used to highlight certain aspects for the school or the program. We've tagged all the schools by their division, and this helps organize the schools geographically in the state. You or a school representative can also go onto the website and create as many tags as you'd like for your school. The first graph looks at morning and afternoon travel modes. For example, for the example school, we can see that many students take the bus. And then from the table below, we can see that just under 1% of students walk in the morning, but 2% walk in the afternoon. Once you have the data, a good next step for implementing a Safe Routes to School program is to learn more about the makeup of the student body. For instance, at this school, I'd be curious to know what percentage of students live within the walking shed, because this will certainly affect the number of students that are walking and biking. From a Safe Routes to School perspective, schools with lots of bus and family vehicle trips could mean that the school is nearby a high incident area or has school hazard busing. This is when a school is near an area that is less comfortable for walking or biking, like a railroad crossing or a highway interchange. So students ride the bus to school, even if they live within the walk shed. If a school does have hazard busing or is near a high incident area, this could be the focus of a future infrastructure project. The next page shows a breakdown of the travel modes by day. Although Student Travel Tally Week only requires 2 days a week, not all classes choose the same days. So these graphs look at how many trips were done each day. For all the schools that uploaded their data into the online survey, Day 1 was considered Tuesday and Day 2 was considered Wednesday. We can see here that for example elementary, it seems the general data for the week is pretty similar to the daily totals. The chart underneath the graph shows the percentages for each day. Here we can see that about 1% of students walked on Tuesday, but under 1% of students walked on Wednesday. Likewise, we can see that 70% took the bus on Tuesday and 72% took the bus on Wednesday. Sometimes the rates of walking can change based on school projects. Many schools hold Walking Wednesdays and Biking Fridays, where students walk and bike to school on certain days. In those cases, the day-by-day comparisons can differ greatly. But for our example, it's pretty similar throughout the week. The last graph looks at the weather. In this case, it was sunny for both days that Example Elementary took their tally. For other schools where it might have been raining, we could compare how students traveled depending on the weather. Again, the chart underneath the graph shows the individual percentages for travel mode by weather. And that's it. That's the single tally report. Now let's take a look at a division-wide report. The next report type is the aggregated report, which we can use to compare a single school with an entire district, or even the state. It shows the same information as the single tally report, including morning and afternoon comparisons, percentages, and weather. It only differs because now we're going to be looking at many schools at once. Just like the single tally report, to access an aggregate report, click the My Report tab on the Safe Routes Data website, but this time choose the second option, Report that combines travel tallies collected during the same time period for all the schools in the school group. On this page, choose the school group, which is still Virginia schools, and then choose the tag based on division. In most cases, there'll still be one season to collect from, or to choose from, excuse me. If there are additional tags you'd like to include, feel free to include them here. However, it's not necessary. So for our webinar, we're going to look at sample county and compare it with our example elementary school. The first page of the aggregated report shows summary information, and here we can see the 9 schools from sample county that participated in Student Travel Tally Week. Again, since the percentage of students reached wasn't included in the survey, it's not on this list, nor are the number of classes targeted by school groups. But this information can be added later, and it's not going to affect the outcome of the report. Keep note that schools do differ in size, and the number of classrooms per school will vary. Although all the schools will be included in the division report, it's important to note because an outlier school that had many, many classes could influence the data as a whole, especially if that school had a specific policy, such as a school that banned walking or biking, or even a school that had walking Wednesdays or biking Fridays. It can affect everything. So similar to the example school, we can see that sample division also has a majority of students taking the bus. The detailed table shows that about 2% of students walk to school across the division, while less than 2% walk to school at example elementary. Also, fewer students are taking the bus division-wide compared with the example school. Again, this should lead to further exploration of the example school. Maybe there's a reason that more students are taking the bus or taking more motor vehicles. The rest of the report is very similar to the single tally report we saw for the single school tally. There are detailed percentage pages, there are graphs for a day-to-day comparison, and there's information for the weather. But I want to take a quick moment to look at this, because we can briefly see that the weather changed during sample counties tallies. The middle set of columns shows that travel during the rain, there were fewer bus ride trips and more family vehicle trips. So weather can have an effect on the way students get to school. The last type of report we'll look at is the 2-period report. It's for schools that have taken tallies more than once. It shows classroom counts, overall percentages, AM and PM comparisons, and the weather for the school during 2 collecting periods. To create this report, again, you'll go on to My Reports at saferoutesdata.org. This time we'll choose the third option, Report for one school comparing travel tallies collected during 2 different data collection periods. This link will lead you to a new page to choose the school and the collection dates. Be sure to confirm that time 2 is the most recent of the 2 dates. For our example, we're going to look at Vienna Elementary School. This school is in Vienna, Virginia, which is part of Fairfax County Public Schools. They've taken student travel tally this fall and last fall. The introductory information includes grades participating, time periods used, and school enrollment if it's available. You can see here that total enrollment for this year was added, but it wasn't last year. Again, it's not going to change the outcome of the data, but it's interesting to keep track of. Should someone from Vienna Elementary want to change it, they'll be able to go in at any time and add total enrollment for any school collection period. We also need to keep in mind a few things. First, standardization, which in this report means that the comparison between the 2 school years takes into account the number of students in each grade. So essentially, we can compare the same number of last year's first graders with this year's second graders. This helps make a more accurate comparison because we have a better makeup of what the student body looks like. It also helps because then we can see if changes in walking and biking can be attributed to a Safe Routes to School program and not just because students are getting older. The second issue to keep in mind is potentially confounding variables. A good one is weather. If during Student Travel Tally Week it was snowy one year and it's sunny the next, the data is going to be affected. So it's important to keep these caveats in mind. So the first graph shows morning arrival comparisons between the 2 years. It seems that between 2012 and 2013, in Vienna Elementary School, there was an increase in walking and biking and a decrease in school bus and family vehicle trips. The detailed chart confirms this. Walking increased by 7%, biking increased by 5%. School bus trips decreased by 7%, and family vehicle trips decreased by 2%. The last part of the comparison looks at whether the change is statistically significant. Statistical significance is important because it suggests that any change noted in the report is happening for real and not because there's just a coincidence in the data. So, for Vienna Elementary, it says that the increase in walking and biking is statistically significant. So if Vienna has Safe Routes to School events and encourages biking and walking, their campaign is working. More students are choosing active modes of transportation to get to school. However, there is not a statistically significant decrease in students arriving by carpool, family vehicle, or bus. And this is perfectly okay. It just means that the change in bus and car trips isn't big enough to account for any one thing. We can look at the afternoon comparisons as well and see similar trends. More students walking and biking, fewer students riding the bus or taking family vehicles. The last part of the two-period report is for the weather. It takes a look at how many trips were taken by the type of weather. We can see here that in 2012, in the blue, about half the trips were made when it was rainy and half the trips were made when it was sunny. While in 2013, in the red, all trips happened in sunny weather, at least during Student Travel Tally Week. Regardless of the report type, it's important to think about factors that will affect Student Travel Tally Week results. Like we mentioned before, weather. If it's raining, snowing, sunny, or overcast, the weather will affect how a student gets to and from school, and it can affect the data. Since Student Travel Tally Week is only a brief snapshot, it's important that schools keep weather in mind. Next is school or community events. If student travel tallies are done on a day where there's a prep rally at the school or there's a parade in town, or even on a walk or bike to school day, there can be significant changes in the data, and it's important to keep these in mind. Generally, we recommend doing Student Travel Tally Week over a week where no big events are happening. Finally, reporting bias. Since all the data is provided by the student and collected by the teacher, it is subject to their decisions. If it's only drizzling outside, does the teacher choose rainy or overcast? If a student walks to a friend's house and then rides in the car with them to school, does the student choose walk or carpool? Although no one expects the data to dramatically change between teachers and students, it's important to keep this in mind when reporting. Even with all these caveats, student travel tallies are an important part of a Safe Routes to School program because they provide a census of the school where all students are questioned. So when you're thinking about where to go forward at your school, there's always more data to collect. Remember, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Tally data is only one facet of creating a robust, data-driven Safe Routes to School program, and there are other types of data you can use to help guide your future projects and support Safe Routes to School. Similar to tallies, the National Center has a great parent survey that schools can do, which explores student travel behavior in more detail than the tallies. It's a great way to introduce parents to the Safe Routes to School program, and the surveys are a great way to confirm student travel tally data, and vice versa. Next, look for pedestrian and bicycle crashes in areas nearby your schools. The local police will have this data as well as the Federal Highway Administration. Find out where crashes happen. Addressing these trouble spots can make a big difference in a pedestrian and bicycling safety program. Finally, a sidewalk analysis. Although this data may or may not be readily available from your county's engineer office, an analysis of existing sidewalk conditions will help put and identify the quality of sidewalks going to and from schools. If this information doesn't exist, offer to do an existing conditions assessment of sidewalks near your school. It will help build a partnership between municipal engineers and make connections with other interested stakeholders in the city. Finally, let's take a look at Virginia as a state. So for this year's Student Travel Tally Week, 162 schools participated. They came from 52 different cities and towns and 18 school divisions across the state. 167,589 students were tallied. Pretty great. Across the state, school bus trips are the overwhelming norm, and they account for about 68% of trips both to and from school. About 22% of students going to school use family vehicle trips, while only 18% of trips leaving school are from family vehicles. About 2% of students take a carpool to school, while 4% of students take carpools home. About 1% of students bike to and from school, and about 7% of students walk to and from school, which is pretty good. Also, please note that under 1% of students take transit or other modes, and this includes things like scooters or skateboards and rollerblades and things like that. We recently sent out a survey to participating teachers to learn about how they collected their data. If you haven't already filled out the follow-up survey, please take a few minutes and let us know how Student Travel Tally Week went for you and your school. This year, more schools in Virginia participated than ever before, and that's great news. In fact, 70% of survey respondents said that this is their first time for doing travel tallies. Of the respondents, a little more than half prefer to use the paper form to collect the tallies, while a little less than half prefer to send the paper forms out to the National Center for the data to be uploaded. 80% of survey respondents plan on participating next year, which is great. We wanted to learn about the process because this year we tried something new, and we tried to use a statewide survey to collect the student travel data. We did this for a few reasons. We were hoping that we could get the data back quicker to help schools who are interested to apply for transportation alternatives grants. Also, we wanted to generate statewide reports. And we were trying to make the process of entering data easier for teachers across the state. However, it seems that the traditional paper forms were still used, and teachers preferred this method to the online survey. So now we're working with the National Center to find a process that simplifies data collection and uploading while still being able to generate statewide reports and have the quick turnarounds that we want. Finally, looking ahead at Virginia's Safe Routes programs, there are a few dates to keep in mind. First, the next deadline for the Quick Start mini grants is November 21st. Another 8 schools will be awarded with mini $1,000 grants to help facilitate a walking or biking program for the school. Please be sure to apply if you haven't already. Next, the Activity and Program Projects Grant is due December 17th. But remember, to apply for this grant, you'll need an Activities and Program Plan. And to get more information about this, please visit the Virginia Safe Routes to School website. Also, February is Crossing Guard Appreciation Month here in Virginia. So start thinking about your school's crossing guard and special ways you can thank him or her for their great work. Finally, we're going to have a few more webinars for the rest of the school year, and we want to get your advice. Would anyone be interested in a webinar for rural safe routes programs? Or what about learning to implement a walking school bus and bike train at your school? Or how to initiate a student safety patrol? If you have any other ideas, please let us know. After this webinar, there's going to be a quick poll, so be sure to answer those questions, and it'll help us choose the next webinar. As always, should you have any questions about safe routes to school, please feel free to contact your local technical assistance coordinator. Or you can visit our website. Thanks again for listening. If you have additional questions, please feel free to type them in, and we'll go through them one by one. How do I... I don't know if there are any questions. Hi, so we just got a question about a webinar for pedestrian and bicycle safety education. That's a great idea, and we'll certainly consider it. We'll put that on our list. The next question is are the student travel tallies ready now? Yes, if you go online to the saferoutesdata.org website, you'll be able to make tallies for your single school report. You should be able to make for the division-wide reports. However, there were some difficulties with the website, and I've been communicating with their webmaster on and off, and he told me yesterday that it should be working. But if it's not, please let me know, and I'll be able to make a report for you. As would any of the other LTACs. The next we have sounds like another webinar idea. There are lots of resources that are available online. I think highlighting these resources would benefit anyone working to add safe routes to school programs to their school or school district. That's great. I think that's a good idea. Would having maybe a toolkit or something like that help you? What would be the best way to kind of get that information? Toolkits would be a great start. A webinar highlighting the resources would work too. Sounds like a great plan. Okay. Yeah. Katie, remind me, I'd like to thank all of the division coordinators for all their help getting the student travel tally data together. It made a big difference. So we'll wait for a few more moments for some more questions.
Oh, here's one. Hey, student travel tally, I'm so sorry to miss to participate this year because that week just didn't work for me. If I want to try to get data next year, am I too late? What do I do? How do I try to participate next year if the week doesn't work for me?
Do it whenever.
Right.
Oh.
So say the question and say the answer. You got it.
So we were just asked if schools had not done Student Travel Tally Week this year, how can they do it again next year? and you're able to do it whenever. Just because we hold student travel tally with the same year, you're able to take tallies at any time you'd like and upload the data as well at any time.
So you did student travel tally week in September. Sorry, I'm quoting a question. Do you plan on doing another one in the spring? What do you say, Brian?
I think we'll only be doing these annually because we want to make sure we can keep the same student travel tally weeks in the fall so we have equal comparisons from time to time. Yeah. But as always, for the school, you're welcome to do the tally whenever you'd like and collect your own data. All right, well, thanks again for everything. And if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to email or contact us on the hotline. And be sure to fill out the poll at the end of the webinar. Thanks.